Have you ever worked somewhere where, on paper, everything seems fine, but you just have this feeling that something is really off? You know, the numbers look okay, everyone's busy, but making any real progress feels like you're wading through mud? Well, that's what we're going to get into. We're going to break down how a company's strategy fails, not with some big explosion, but with a quiet whisper. It usually starts with that gut feeling that something's not right.
This quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? We always imagine strategic failure is some big, dramatic event, a terrible earnings call, a product that completely flops. But the reality? It's way, way more subtle than that. It's almost like a silent illness that creeps into the system, long before anyone in leadership is ready to admit there's even a problem.
And this is exactly why it's so hard to spot. The breakdown always starts in what we could call the dangerously survivable phase. I mean, from the outside, and even from the inside, it looks like business as usual. Revenue is pretty steady, customers aren't really complaining, and my gosh, everyone is so busy. Leaders can point to things that are getting done, but underneath all of that, the organization is paying this huge, hidden price just to keep moving forward.
So here's the absolute core of it. The problem isn't a bad idea. It's not even necessarily a flawed strategy. The problem is structural. The organization's operating model, its wiring, how work actually gets done, is broken. It literally cannot take a decision from the top and get it to the front lines without that decision getting twisted or slowed down, or worst of all, completely reversed somewhere along the way.
Okay, so because that core problem is so hard to see, leaders naturally grab for explanations that feel more familiar. They're seeing the symptoms for sure, but they are completely misdiagnosing the disease. Let's look at the usual suspects.
I mean, we've all heard these, right? And they feel so true in the moment. Oh, we just need to communicate better. That's a tempting one, because it sounds simple enough to fix. Or we blame leadership, or maybe middle management, because that puts a face on the problem. And of course, saying it's the market, or we have too many priorities, that just pushes the issue outside. And look, while there might be some truth to these, they're almost always just incomplete answers.
So if those are all just symptoms, what is the real disease? What if every single one of those problems points back to one central failing mechanism, the organization's ability to make a decision and then actually enforce it? Because when that breaks down, everything else just becomes slow, expensive, and political.
All right, so how do you spot the real problem? Well, there are 8 early warning signals. If you start seeing these, the breakdown isn't some hypothetical thing. It is already happening. Let's walk through them one by one.
First thing you'll notice, simple decisions start to take forever. I'm talking about a choice that should have taken a day, maybe 2, and now it's taking weeks of meetings and pre-meetings and just one more review from leadership. The decision itself isn't any harder, but the system for making it has become completely clogged. This is a huge red flag that either decision rights are a mess or trust is really low.
Now, this next signal, it's a little counterintuitive, but it's a totally rational response to a broken system. A decision gets made, it's announced, and then a week later, it's kind of back on the table. So what happens? People learn that decisions aren't really final. They're more like suggestions. So they hedge their bets. They don't fully commit their resources. It might look like resistance, but really, it's just smart self-preservation in a system where nothing is set in stone.
You see, in a healthy system, managers enforce the strategy, but when the system breaks, they're forced to become translators. For example, leadership says, we need to be more customer-centric. Well, the sales team hears offer more discounts, but the product team hears build more features. Everyone has their own interpretation, and no amount of alignment meetings is going to fix that strategic drift.
This signal is all about authority. Sure, the company has dashboards and metrics for days, but when 2 important priorities clash, the numbers don't actually settle the argument. The decision ends up getting made based on who has the most influence in the room or what feels like the biggest fire that day. The metrics become a story you tell, not a tool you actually use.
Next, you'll see the leadership team becoming a massive bottleneck. Tiny problems that should be solved right on the front lines get pushed all the way up the chain. And why does that happen? Because the people on the ground either don't have the authority to make the call or they're stuck in a gridlock between departments. So the whole organization just grinds to a halt, waiting for a decision from the top.
Oh, we have all felt this one. Your calendar is just a wall of meetings, back to back, but you leave most of them without any real clarity on what's next or what success even looks like. This is what happens when meetings become a crutch for a broken structure. Instead of being used to coordinate work, they're being used to do the work, which is just incredibly inefficient.
Rework is basically the hidden tax on your strategy. You know, a project that gets revised over and over and over again, often bouncing between different teams. Now, leadership might see this and think, great, this shows a real commitment to quality. But what it really signals is that the requirements are unstable or that key decisions just aren't being made early enough. The team isn't learning, it's just stuck in a loop.
And the final signal, the word priority, just loses all its meaning. When everything is a priority, well then nothing is. It's a classic sign that the organization is just avoiding the hard trade-offs that are absolutely necessary for real execution. A real priority gets resources. It gets people, time, and budget. A fake priority just gets a label slapped on it.
So a leader starts to sense this drift. They're seeing these signals, even if they can't name them. What's the knee-jerk reaction? They fall right into something called the intensity trap.
And this just lays out the vicious cycle perfectly. Leadership senses things are off. So what do? They add intensity. They demand longer hours, more detailed reports, more check-in meetings. But all this does is add more load to an already overloaded system. People get burned out, managers become even more cautious, and decision-making slows down even further. You're basically trying to solve a design flaw with sheer effort, and that heroic effort always burns out.
So how can you tell if what you're feeling is just normal, everyday friction or a true structural breakdown? This chart makes it super clear. In a healthy system, decisions travel through the organization. In a broken one, they distort. In a healthy system, decisions are durable. In a broken one, they're always being revisited. It's a fundamental difference, you see. One is about overcoming normal hurdles. The other is a system that literally cannot enforce its own strategy.
But here's the good news. This is actually fixable. The cure, though, isn't about blaming people or asking them to work harder. It's about redesigning the system itself. Let's look at what that actually means.
Let's just take this case study. So you've got a company that wants to focus on its high-margin products, but the sales team just keeps selling low-margin custom stuff. Leadership holds meeting after meeting to get alignment, and it fails every single time. Why? Because the system actually rewards the exceptions. The fix isn't another speech. It's building enforcement into the system. Things like clear rules for deal approvals or different pricing for exceptions. All of a sudden, you don't need alignment meetings because the system itself is doing the work.
So, the real solutions are all structural. It's about being crystal clear about who decides what and then enforcing it. It's about creating a tighter operating rhythm so managers don't have to guess and translate strategy. It's about giving your metrics actual teeth by tying them to real decisions about resources. And it's about actively hunting down and getting rid of all that hidden load, like endless rework and pointless meetings.
But look, you can't fix everything at once. The first step, and this is absolutely critical, is to identify the single biggest bottleneck that's holding everything else back. If you can't name that primary constraint, you will always fall back into that intensity trap, and you'll just burn everyone out trying to push a broken system harder.
So I want you to take this back to your own team, your own organization. Think about those 8 signals we talked about, and then ask yourself this one critical question. What is the one constraint that is quietly breaking our strategy right now? Because finding it and naming it is the only way you can ever start to fix it.